Hello again, gamers. Welcome back for another episode of Grokking Battletech. I'm the board game captain, and today I'm going to be telling you how to grok the Archangel. So I want to start by giving a big thank you to one of my regular viewers, Bone Shaman 8912. So Bone Shaman requested that I cover all of the celestial mechs. So I'm starting off with the largest of the celestial mechs, the Archangel. So I want to give a big thank you to Bone Shaman for this request. This episode of Grokking Battletech is for you. I also have a ton of links in the description down below that you can check out at your leisure. There's a link to BoardGameCaptain.com, which is a great hub for all things Board Game Captain. There's also a link to my Teespring store if you'd like to check out and get some cool Board Game Captain merch, t-shirts, mugs, etc. And there's a link to my Patreon, which is a place that you can support the channel if you are in a position to do so. All right, so the Archangel. The Archangel is a 100-ton assault mech from the Jihad era. This is the largest of the series of mechs known as the Celestial mechs. They're all series that are really made to work well together, which is why, and this is a little bit of a spoiler, later in this episode when I tell you my lance for it, I decided for the very first episode of one of the Celestials that I'll be making a lance where it uses nothing but Celestial mechs. So actually this is going to be almost kind of a preview of coming attractions, since I'm going to be doing an episode on every one of the Celestial mechs here. This is a lance that will use 4 different Celestials in it. So what is the Archangel? The Archangel is a 100-ton kind of slow beast that uses a lot of new space-saving technology. It has a compact fusion engine, it has a compact gyro, and it has a small cockpit. Now, generally speaking, a lot of these are great bits of tech that allow you to save space to fit in lots of other things in the mech. But some of them also have some drawbacks. Now, the compact engine and compact gyro, their only drawbacks are that they are heavier than standard engines and gyros. But they take up less space, which means there's less crits to hit them, which is great. That's a big plus. And they take up less space, so you have less space. You have more space to use for other things, also a big plus. The small cockpit, on the other hand, this is a single line that basically is the combination of the life support and the cockpit. It's just that, generally speaking, there's a bit of an issue there because since the cockpit is so small, anytime you need to make a piloting skill roll, it's +1 difficulty, which means whatever the piloting skill of your mech warrior is, it's really, one worse than actually it is. So that's one that I have a bit of an issue with. But other than that, obviously the designers, and I can't say as I fault them, they were able to fit in a lot of crazy stuff and then save on a lot of weight by getting endosteel chassis in here. Almost, I think just about all of the versions of the Archangel have all of these smaller things, but then also things like endosteel chassis to then save on some weight and fit a lot of stuff in. So let's start with the basic version of the Archangel. This is the Archangel C-ANG-O Invictus. Now, this version of the Archangel has a 353 movement. They actually managed to make this one jump 3 hexes. I do not like this Archangel. I want to start by saying that. This version of the Archangel is not my favorite, and I'll explain why in a little bit, because for a bit here, it's going to seem like this is great. So far you're like 353 movement on 100-ton mech, fairly mobile. It's, it's like the Marauder 2. And then I say, well, now listen to the armor. It's got 47 on the center torso, full 9 on the head, 32 on the side torsos, 34 on the arms, 42 on the legs, 15 and 10 on the rear torso sections, respectively. You're like, wow, that's great armor. And then I say, well, how about the heat sinks? We have 13 double heat sinks for 26 heat sinking capacity. And you're like, wow, that's also great. Trouble comes into paradise when we discuss the weapons on this version of the Archangel. The reason I have issues with it is it really only has 2 offensive options. One is a heavy PPC, which is a fantastic weapon, does 15 damage at range. And the other is a plasma rifle, also a fantastic weapon, does 10 damage at medium-ish range, a little shorter than that heavy PPC, but also does D6 heat to max and extra damage to vehicles and infantry and other such things. Then they put on a lot of other things. So it's got an improved C3 CPU, it's got a Guardian ECM suite, it's got a targeting computer, and it's got a retractable blade. So first off, the retractable blade only does 10 damage, which you could just do with a punch on this mech. So I'm very confused as to why you bother wasting weight on a retractable blade, to be honest. Not really a great place for it. The heavy PPC and the plasma rifle are good. All of these mechs in the entire line of mechs of the Celestials have the improved C3 computers. I think there's maybe one or two in the entire line that doesn't. Almost all of them do. It's got a Guardian ECM suite, which is always great. The targeting computer is nice to make you more accurate and possibly do cold shots with that heavy PPC and plasma rifle. But overall, this one, it just doesn't do enough damage for its battle value. It's a big tank, but it doesn't have enough punch, unfortunately. Moving on to the next version of the Archangel. Now, this version is my favorite. This is, in my opinion, the one they do the best combination of offense and defense and heat absorption with. So we keep the 3-5 movement, lose the jump jets to save on space. We've still got the crazy good armor, same armor as the last one, 47 on the center torso, 32 on the sides, 34 on the arms, 42 on the legs, 9 on the head, 15 and 10 on the rear torso sections respectively. We have 20 double heat sinks for a total of 40 heat sinking capacity, and it's going to need it. We have count them, 2 heavy PPCs. This baby can head cap all day long. We have 2 ER medium lasers to crit seek from the holes from those heavy PPCs. We, of course, again, have that improved C3 CPU, and we have a snub nose PPC if stuff gets really up close and personal, and you really just want to overheat while dishing out a lot of firepower. This one is amazing. This version of the Archangel is absolutely fantastic and is hands down my favorite. In my opinion, night and day from the previous version. The Dominus, as it is called, the CANGOA Dominus, is just, a dominating force on the battlefield. Sorry, it is. The next version of the Archangel we're going to talk about is the Archangel CANGOB Infernus. Now the Infernus, again, we've got the same armor. We've got the 20 double heat sinks. We've got the 3-5 movement. Now what do we have for the weapons? We have 2 light PPCs, 1 heavy PPC, 2 snub nose PPCs, and an improved C3 CPU. Now this puts an interesting mix of firepower. You've got the light PPCs, which can hit at a much longer range, but only do 5 damage. You have the 1 heavy PPC for punching holes, and the 2 snub nose PPCs, which really require you getting up close and personal, but with only the 3-5 movement, putting that much battle value into a couple of snub nose PPCs seems a little iffy to me, because if your opponent wants to avoid you, they probably can, especially if you're fighting against, say, clan mechs. They're gonna stay away from you, so you can't get that full 10 damage on those snub nose PPCs. So, it's got potential, but also at the same time, in a normal size game, it's going to be too easy to avoid, in my opinion. And the next version of the Archangel is the Archangel CANGOC Comminus. Now, again, we've got the same armor. We have 15 double heat sinks on this one, so a little less, but it doesn't need the heat sinking capacity quite as much. And then for the weapon loadout, we have a Guardian ECM suite. We have the improved C3 CPU. We have a rear-facing ER small laser. Whatever, that one's a waste. We have 2 ER medium lasers, and we have 2, and this is the main weapon on this mech, 2 MRM40s. Now, if you've already got other mechs in your Lance with big guns on them, like AC-20s, LB-20X autocannons, Gauss rifles, heavy Gauss rifles, or heavy PPCs punching those holes in the armor, this thing is an amazing mech to back them up and to crit seek. Twin MRM40s? Are you kidding me? So the only reason I don't like this more than the one that, the Dominus, because of its twin heavy PPCs, is that it can stand alone without requiring another mech to punch holes for it, whereas this one, you need to have another mech all ready to punch holes for it. But if you do, this is a phenomenal crit seeker and possibly one of the best inner sphere crit seekers in the game at any time period. Twin MRM40s is crazy. Okay, so moving along. The next version of the Archangel is the Archangel CANGOD Luminos. Now the Luminos, it has the same armor as all the other versions. This one has 17 double heat sinks for 34 heat sinking capacity. This one gets the jump jets back on, so we have a 3-5-3 movement again. So we still have the improved C3 computer and a Guardian ECM suite that most of these other versions have. But then weapons, it's a little different. So we've got 2 ER PPCs, Very heat-intensive weapons, these. They're gonna, if you fire them both, they are gonna eat up most of your heat for only 20 total damage in 2 spots. Bit of an issue, so this is going to be a mech that's going to have to cycle weapons. But then we've got a bunch of, pulse weapons on here, which is not bad. So what do we have? We have 4 medium pulse lasers and a small pulse laser to do a little intercepting. When something gets in close, with those 3 jumping, you could maybe use it to jump over a building or a hill and intercept a light mech that's trying to get around the rear and surprise it and really unload on it. This is an interesting alternative, but it really doesn't have the punch of some of the previous mechs, like the Dominus, and it really doesn't have the crit finding of some of the previous mechs, like the Comminus. So it kind of is in this sort of like weird giant interceptor role with a couple of long-range weapons that if you fire them, you can't fire any of the interceptor weapons because you're going to crazy overheat. And the long-range weapons don't really do a super impressive amount of damage. It feels like a jack of all trades, master of none. It's not bad. It's just there are glaring better versions of the Archangel. So moving along, we have a grounded version kind of the last one where they take off the jump jets to try to fit some more stuff on here. We have the Archangel Cangoe Eminus. Now the Eminus has the same armor as all of the Archangels we've talked about so far. It has 19 double heat sinks for a total of 38 heat sinking capacity, which is pretty nice. It has twin ER PPCs. It has an ER large laser. It has a light PPC. 2 ER small lasers, it has an improved C3 CPU, and it has a targeting computer, so it can actually do some crit seeking specifically with aimed shots from afar with the ER PPCs and the ER large laser, which is pretty nice. Now, it doesn't have enough heat sinking capacity to really be firing all this either. In fact, if it just fires the 2 ER PPCs as well as the ER large laser, this thing is already going to be overheating. But I do kind of respect how awesome it can be with that targeting computer. If you've got something else to really punch big holes, you can really seek in and find those holes again with the ER PPCs and the ER large lasers. This can actually be a long-range mech killer where you can pick apart a mech punching through the holes in the armor that were already created by something else. So there is a role for this. It does require you to make a lance specifically for it, but I think this can be good if done properly with the lance build. It is a little situational. The final version of the Archangel is the Archangel Cangos Celestus. Now this version has the same armor as all the versions of the Archangels. This one has 17 double heat sinks for 34 heat sinking capacity. We do away with the jump jets again for only a 3-5 movement. And then we have an interesting mix of weapons. So we've got the improved C3 computer, just like all of them. We have 2 ER flamers. They're, okay if you need to kill some infantry, I guess. Otherwise, not really that useful. We have 2 clan ER medium lasers. These are really nice, doing that 7 damage instead of the 5 of the inner sphere version. But then we have like a pair of blazer cannons, which, yes, they can head cap, but they're like the weakest head capping weapon in the game, and don't even really have that great range, and cause 16 heat for 12 damage. They're all right. We have a Thunderbolt 10, which it's that weird single big large missile launcher. It does 10 damage. It can do some armor piercing with that 10 damage, but if your opponent has an anti-missile system, this thing is dead in the water. And we have 2 ER clan small lasers, which, all right, they do 5 damage, so, they're kind of like a clan medium laser with a little bit shorter range. Yeah, overall, this is one where, if you're able to fit it because its battle value is less than a lot of the others, it's only 2026 battle value, and you're allowing experimental tech, I could see reasons to take it storyline-wise, but competitively, it's not the most competitive of the Archangels. It's also, though, actually not the worst. I mean, I could see myself taking this, because again, it has twin head capping weapons on it. And anything with twin head capping weapons has that random chance of possibly blowing the head off of an enemy mech, and it has that twice. So even though the blazers aren't the greatest head capping weapon in the world, and they really aren't, they do have that random chance. So yeah, there are reasons to take this over some other versions of the Archangel. But my favorite is the CANGOA Dominus, the one with the twin heavy PPCs. So I decided to do an upgraded mixed tech version of that version of the Archangel. Now, my version was designed by my own personal mech design firm, KiWF, named after the last initials of its 4 founding members, but affectionately nicknamed Kill It With Fire by its fans. Remember, don't just kill it with fire. So in the Dark Age, my mech design firm have gotten their hands on some clan tech purchased from Clan Diamond Shark, and they're trying it out in some inner sphere designs, trying to meld and mix the best of both worlds here is really what they're going for. So this is the Archangel CANG-OA KiWF. Now I started with the standard Archangel chassis as it was. I kept the C3i computer because it really would feel wrong, really just very wrong to get rid of that. But I did get rid of weapons on this mech, and I decided I wanted to upgrade this mech with clan double heat sinks to save on some space because it was already getting kind of space tight, and with some clan weapons. So my version has 25 clan heat sinks for a total of 50 heat sinking capacity, which is pretty crazy. Then we have 3 clan ERPPCs, which of course do 15 points of damage at up to 23 hexes away. And then because we're mixing tech, and I decided to get kind of evil with this version, I gave each one of those ER clan PPCs a inner sphere PPC capacitor, making each one of those able to do up to 20 damage at up to 23 hexes away. And then I gave it a single clan ER medium laser. This thing gets really expensive battle value wise. It's a 2,699 battle value, but it's also super deadly, and I could definitely see myself using this in a Jihad or Dark Age era kind of game if I wanted to really take advantage of the fact that there's a lot of the mixed tech in this time period. And I had a lance where I didn't really need my last mech to fill one of the roles for the requirements in the lance. Because this mech could be absolutely deadly. I would actually put this mech up against some of the best clan mechs, big, heavy, slow clan mechs with lots of firepower, and I think it actually could hold its own. Yeah, but mainly because of the large amount of clan tech on it. But the combination of clan ER PPCs and inner sphere PPC capacitors, I think would be absolutely deadly for that first volley. Plus, anytime you need to, say, duck behind a building for a turn and cool off while charging back up your PPC capacitors, you could come back out and do 20 damage each in 3 spots. And, if 2 of those hit in the same spot, oh Lord, 40 damage in 1 spot. You're tearing through most armor on mechs in 1 volley, which could be really, really crazy. So yeah, I'm not going to be using that for my lance today though, because I decided I wanted to use the Canon Archangel CANGOA Dominus for my lance. And before I get into the lance, I do want to give you a recommended mech warrior to pilot the CANGOA Dominus. So we're going to be using Craig Gullidge. Now, Craig Gullidge is a 4-class mech warrior, so you're going to be using him if you are using 4-class mech warriors in a game. He has a gunnery skill of 2, which is incredibly accurate for all those heavy PPCs, the big firepower. He's got a piloting skill of 3, and then his abilities are he has Inspiring Commander 3, which means either him or anyone else in his lance can use up to 3 rerolls total throughout the game when firing, which is going to be really great for his heavy PPCs. Plus, there are some other big guns in the lance that you may want to use this for also. And he has Human TRO, which gives him a +1 when rolling on determining critical hits, which is going to be really useful considering those heavy PPCs are going to be very likely to pierce armor when they connect. So yeah, Craig Gullidge is going to be really, really cool. Now, for my lance, what I decided to go for here is a Jihad era 6,000 battle value command lance. So the thing is, this lance is also going to be with its 6,000 battle value, 300 of that battle value is essentially for the C3 network I'm creating for amongst these 4 mechs, which means as long as I get one of those mechs in at close range, all the mechs get to fire as if they're at close range. That is going to be the focus of the strategy here, is keeping one mech at close range of whoever we're trying to gang up on and shoot, so that the guys who are further back and are harder to hit are themselves going to have a real easy time firing at the particular target. Now, I decided to build this lance around the Command Lance ability because with the Command Lance, you've got 2 things that are really going to help this lance out even more. One is you get to reroll the initiative every round, which is pretty freaking awesome. That combined with having the rerolls on some of your shots because of using Craig Gullidge, is going to be really, really deadly. It's a really deadly combination of effects, but you also have the ability to have 2 of your non-command mechs gain the ability Combat Intuition, which, a quick reminder, Combat Intuition allows you at the end of a turn to declare that you're going to be using Combat Intuition for the following turn. The mech warrior takes 1 wound, which is why you don't want to do it that often, because you still have to roll to stay conscious, and taking too many wounds can be tough, but then they can interrupt the normal initiative order at any time and go before another particular mech has activated, which can allow them to move in and fire on them without getting any extra difficulty based on that mech's movement. So it can be a really great time to pick off a fast mech or that you've isolated, or go in and just slam a mech before it gets the chance to move up and possibly fire on you if you think you can bring it down this turn. So the first mech in this lance is the Archangel CANGOA Dominus. Now, this is a really, really brutal mech. I already went over it. It's my favorite version of the Archangel. It is going to be the command mech for the lance. Now, the next one we have is going to be a mech that is very likely to be that mech to run in at point blank range, hopefully around the side, starting by picking off a individual mech maybe that you get isolated amongst the terrain, get them around the buildings, get them around a side of a forest, and come into close range to really spot for the C3 network. This is the Malik CMKOA Dominus Malik. It has 711 movement, so it's really fast. 10 double heat sinks. We have 6 light machine guns with light machine gun arrays. We have an ER medium laser. We have 2 flamers, another ER medium laser, and an ER small laser. This feels like an inner sphere version of the Piranha with all those light machine guns, plus other weapons on here too that really help you to run around the flank and disrupt your enemy from the rear, because no one wants to get this many small weapons with those random chances to pierce through rear armor on their rear, and running around the rear could possibly keep this mech alive while it's spotting for the C3 network to allow everyone else to fire as if they are at short range when they're still at long range. The third mech in the lance is a mech that's going to follow him up and eventually get into that short range second. That is the Preta CPRTOD Luminos. Now, this is a 696 45-ton mech with 10 double heat sinks. Now, again, with that fairly fast and maneuverable 696 movement, he's going to be the second mech to pull in and get in there fairly close, even if you accidentally lose the Malik early. It's got a snub-nosed PPC. Of course, all these mechs have those improved C3 networks. And this one has a lot of intercepting weapons to try to take down a fast mech that might be trying to zoom past and get in point blank with maybe some of your bigger mechs in the back. It's got 2 medium pulse lasers and 2 small pulse lasers, which makes this a fairly affordable mech that can get in and intercept or punch holes with that snub-nosed PPC at point blank range. And finally, we have the second fairly large mech to help back up with heavy firepower against your enemy at range, and this is the Grigori CGRGOD Luminos. And this version of the Grigori has a 466 movement, so it can jump further than it can walk, which is really nice with those advanced jump jets. It has 10 double heat sinks, and while the combination of jumping and firing can definitely overheat this, if you're careful with it and save the jumping for when you really need it, you have to be a bit judicious. It does have a lot of firepower that you could use while walking or running. It's got a light PPC, an ER medium laser, a second ER medium laser, a heavy PPC, and 2 ER small lasers for if something gets up close and personal. The heavy PPC is the main thing that I think you might be using the Inspiring Commander rolls with, in addition to using them on the heavy PPCs that are on, of course, your Archangel, the big command mech. But also, I do think that this is probably going to be one of your 2 mechs that you're going to give combat intuition to, because on rare occasion, you may want to jump in behind an enemy and either fire with a bunch of those little weapons to try to find a hole that's already been made, or shoot with the heavy PPC by itself, so you don't overheat too badly, and punch a hole in the rear armor. I think this would be a really fun lance to play with. Actually, I do think this would be pretty deadly. I think all of these mechs have a purpose in this lance, and combined with the C3 network, I think these are going to be unbelievably deadly. If your opponent messes up and allows you to isolate a mech or 2 at a time amongst heavy terrain and pick them apart, you could really tear apart an enemy lance without them even doing too much damage to you. Now, granted, if your opponent is a better player, they may make you fight for it, but still, the combination of the C3 network with the command lance ability and the inspiring commander ability on your main mech warrior, I think it's going to be absolutely a deadly combination. So let me know what you think of my lance and my custom version of the Archangel in the comments down below. I hope you enjoyed this episode. You can also comment down below and request other mechs for me to cover that I haven't covered in this series yet. I just want to let you know I've got a fair number of requests in right now, so it will be a little while because they'll be at the back of the list. But I'm always taking requests for other mechs I should cover on the series of Grokking Battletech. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to give it a like, share it on all forms of social media, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Board Game Captain. That's Captain spelled with a K on YouTube. And until next time, game on.